Hello everyone, patching in today's third video. We're going to have a look at the weather next week, 10 days for today's third video. That's going to take us to around the 6th of June. So we're moving into the first week of the first month of meteorological summer with week 10 day video update time frame. Now, of course, we didn't do a video yesterday, so we've got to bring you up to date with all of the latest developments and whatnot. So we'll get on with that for you very shortly. Just to say that the first video released today was the ECMWF 30-day look ahead, and that's taking us into the second half of June. With the ECM seasonal model looking at temperature and precipitation anomalies for the next 4 weeks. Now, before we do anything else, I thought we'd just say about the hurricane season, because we are moving now towards the beginning of the Atlantic tropical storm and hurricane season. So these are our names that we've got for this year's season. Now, we've already used Arthur, of course. That's the first one for the letter A. We've already used Arthur for Tropical Storm Arthur, which formed like a week or so back. So these are all of the names of this year's tropical storm and hurricane season. We've got Arthur, Bertha, Christabel, Dolly, Edward, Faye, Gonzalo, Hannah, I think that's Zayas, perhaps. If anybody knows how you pronounce that, let me know in the comments. Zayas or Azaya. Josephine, Kyle, Laura, Marco, Nana or Nana, Omar, Paulette, Reen or Reenie, Sally, Teddy, Vicky, and Wilfred. That is the roll call of this year's tropical storm and Atlantic hurricane season names. And make sure how far into that we're going to get. I have a feeling we'll go quite a long way into that list. I think we'll certainly get over to column 3. So we'll get over to Omar, Paulette, Reen, Sally, Teddy, and so on. Whether we get all the way down to Wilfred remains to be seen. But I think this is going to be quite a biggish season, to be honest. So I think we'll get quite a long way into that list. As I say, we already have Arthur, that we had Tropical Storm Arthur a week or so back. The season actually officially gets underway on the 1st of June, so on Monday, and will run until the last day of November. But of course, before that, we've already had Tropical Storm Arthur. Now, there is a disturbance area right now over Florida. We've got this from National Hurricane Center, of course. We've got this yellow X just here. Quite a lot to read about that. It's Disturbance 1, and they're saying widespread showers and thunderstorms are extending across Florida, the Bahamas, and the adjacent Atlantic and Gulf of Mexico waters are associated with an elongated surface trough interacting with an upper level disturbance. Although a weak surface low pressure could form along the surface trough just off the coast of Florida and move northward toward Georgia and South Carolina on Tuesday, Wednesday, the low is not expected to become a tropical cyclone due to strong upper level winds. So it only has a 20% chance of becoming a tropical storm in the next 48 hours. It just looks like it's going to be quite a vigorous little area of low pressure, but not take the next step upwards. However, there have been a few hints that we might get a tropical storm or hurricane developing in around 10 days' time or so. This is from meteoshield.fr. It's the latest GFS 6 o'clock run. So this is North America, of course. That's Canada up there. This is North America just here. And then we go down to Mexico and like the Caribbean just there. So there's not much going on over the next sort of few days. We can see that definitely looking rather slack. This is the area we're focusing on, of course, through the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Not much happening in the next few days, but in around sort of day 8, 9, we do start to get some areas of low pressure developing down here, close to Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula. And as we run through into the more extended range with this GFS run, look what starts happening. We start to develop around day 10 an area of low pressure, probably a tropical storm there in the Gulf of Mexico. That actually develops into a hurricane as it moves across the Gulf of Mexico. There it is, developing into a hurricane heading through the Gulf of Mexico, somewhere like between Florida and heading on to this Gulf Coast of North America. That is a hurricane that the GFS is forecasting there, and it eventually brings it in direct impact along that Gulf Coast sometime around the 8th, 9th, 10th of June. Now, this is very long way out, of course, but that could potentially be, let's go back to names, that could potentially be Hurricane Bertha. And it would be very, very early to be getting a hurricane, of course. I would think it'd be one of the earliest hurricanes on record, but I'm not entirely sure about that, but certainly very early to get a hurricane, and the GFS is already sort of flirting with that possibility. So I think we're going to have a very active season this year. I think we're going to have probably a hyperactive hurricane season, and it will remain to be seen what sort of impacts that has. But definitely things look like they're going to be off to a flying start. That is a very extended range forecast, not until around day 10 that the tropical storm gets going, so it's a long way off, but I think we need to keep a close eye on that, and also more widely on the sort of Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico and tropical Atlantic. All those areas have to keep a close eye, I think, over the next few weeks and months. Right, so let's bring you up to date with CT. This is how central temperature is currently looking. So we're standing at 12.0 at the moment, provisional to yesterday, 25th of May. That's 1 degree above average. That's going to carry on rising over the next few days. So it's going to carry on rising right way through to the end of the month, which of course is going to be Sunday. Now, I think we're going to finish up. There's going to be quite a large downwards correction, I believe, this month. So I think we're going to shave about nearly half a degree off when we come to the end of the month. But I think we'll finish up probably somewhere around 12.6. That's certainly where we was pitching things when we did our last summer update, and we looked at up to May CT data. We was pitching it at around 12.6. I think that's going to be like the landing zone. This is how the 500 millibar high anomaly flow chart's looking for next week, 10 days from the Penn State University. We've got the ECMWF on the top and the GFS is on the bottom. So 500 millibars in area in that's here where low pressure and high pressure will be moved out by jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure blue to low pressure. You can see that with the ECM in the week to 10 day time frame, we have still got quite an Atlantic influence actually. The above average heights sort of out to our west a little bit, but still exerting enough of an influence to keep us mainly dry. There is quite a deep area of low pressure developing down towards Spain, by the way. That could bring some really unseasonably wet weather in towards Spain and Portugal, perhaps around days 7, 8, 9, 10. But for us, we're close to an area of high pressure with the ECM, so we should be mainly dry at that point. The GFS is very similar, but it does have this low pressure to our southwest a little bit closer, so that could well be threatening some heavy showers, maybe thundery rain into our southern parts of the country. The above average heights, the high pressure of the ridge, is further northwards up here. So still quite close to high pressure, but it's just going a little bit further northwards and westwards compared to the ECM, and so that will potentially be rather more unsettled around days 8, 9 and 10, maybe bring some rain up from the southwest. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Looking at London or West Central today. So red line is the 30-year upper air temperature average for London. We're above average at the moment. It's nice and warm out there right now. And overall, the next few days, we're going to keep the temperature, upper air temperature and surface temperatures above average as well. A little bit of a reduction showing up perhaps sometime around the 1st or the 2nd of June. And then they start to take off again as we go through the first week of June. So overall, that's a warmer than average signal for the next week or two across most parts of the UK, particularly for England and Wales. Late on, there is a bit of scatter. So as we come towards the end of like the last week of June, we do see the end of the first week of June and into the beginning of the second week of June. See what I mean? We do see a little bit of scatter. There's cold average on some members there. These are quite hot on some members up here. So a little bit of uncertainty as we come to the end of the first week of June. But otherwise, I think we're basically looking at a relatively warm week to 10 days to come anyway. And lots of dry weather too, so for the next week, really look completely dry for London. Later on, as we move through the first week of June, again, we have got some rainfall spikes coming through. So it's the same idea that we've been seeing in the ensemble output over the last few days, last couple of weeks. Most of the conditions are always pushed out towards a more extended range, and so uncertainty and unreliability surrounds that. In the next week, we're going to have a lot of high pressure. There's going to be a lot of warm and dry conditions to enjoy. Temperature anomalies from the 26th of May to the 3rd of June are going to be warmer than average. It's a warmer than average week coming up, not just for the UK, but through most parts of Northern and Western Europe. Coldest anomalies are pushed over towards the eastern side of Europe. Precipitation anomalies significantly drier than average from the 29th of May to the 3rd of June. Significantly drier than average, not just of the UK, but through most of Northern Europe as well. Very much on the drier than average side. That's how the GFS 6 o'clock run is looking for Friday. I've got a big area of high pressure still centred over top of the country on Friday. Dry, fine, warm, potentially very warm. Winds are coming in from a southerly to southeasterly direction. Temperatures could easily be reaching mid to possibly upper 20s Celsius. The ridge carries on into Sunday as well. Just a little bit of a weakening of the ridge by Monday, by Sunday I should say, might allow 1 or 2 showers to break out. But essentially, we're still under high pressure, should be mainly dry, fine, and warm. Now, through the early part of next week, the GFS then starts to move this area of low pressure in from the Atlantic. The ridge pulls away to Scandinavia, and another ridge moves out into the middle of the North Atlantic. And in the gap comes a trough of low pressure, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. So that will be our first significant rain around the 2nd of June for a very long time. Actually becomes quite a significant area of low pressure across southern England and northern France as we get through to the 3rd of June. So again, this does imply the chance of some very much needed and useful rain through the early part of next week. How seriously can we take it? That's the question. But it does imply that there's the possibility anyway of some much needed rain through the early part of next week. By day 10, the low pressure is beginning to slip away towards Spain, becoming a cut-off low, and a ridge is starting to build back in behind it. So it looks like it's probably just a short sort of temporary interruption to the fine weather, and then we're back to high pressure again as we move out towards like the 2nd week of June. That's a long way off though. So how we finish up with this GFS run on the 11th of June, maybe hinting at a bit of thunder down to our south and southwest, and quite a warm easterly flow setting up. GM looks like that. So again, high pressure dominates on Friday, mostly dry, fine, warm to very warm. That carries on into the weekend as well. Then into the early part of next week. It takes a little bit longer to move this low pressure and this trough in from off the Atlantic, but it does eventually get there. So again, by Tuesday, week away, the GM is turning things more unsettled, probably showery more than anything overly dramatic, but certainly the chance of some much needed rainfall there through the early part of next week before the low sort of slips away to our south. However, the GM wants to move another low pressure in from the North Atlantic. And so it finishes up on Friday the 5th of June, day 10, actually looking quite unsettled with low pressure dominating across many northern and western parts of Europe. It's had a little bit overtight, it's had a bit overdone. That also remains to be seen. But the GM certainly looks rather unsettled by the time we get through to day 10, with quite a big trough covering much of Western Europe. And the ECM also looking like this, so mainly dry, fine conditions for Friday, very warm to locally sort of hot, really sort of knocking on the door of upper 20s, I think, on Friday down in the southeast. So probably won't get to 30, but I reckon 27, maybe at a push, 28 is possible. Then go through to Saturday and Sunday, and we keep high and dry really through the weekend. Lots of dry and fine, warm conditions continuing then. Through the early part of next week, the ECM actually doesn't make as much of that low pressure as the GFS and the GM. So the ECM has the low pressure around Spain and Portugal. We saw it on the 500 millibar high-dynamic flow chart. And with the ECM, we actually stay under high pressure. So if you don't want rain through the early part of next week, that's how we keep it dry through the early part of next week with the ECM. The low pressure is cut off and a lot further south. By day 10, we just hint at pulling down something a little bit cooler and perhaps slightly more showery from the northwest. But the ECM is very dry really up to day 10 today, as you can see from the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run from Tibetio.com. So I'll run you through these very quick because there's not much rain to be seen. A little bit up there in the far north of the country over the next couple of days. But essentially lots of dry weather through to the weekend. And then on into weekend and through to next week again. You see no real rainfall there at all with the ECM. All of the rain is kept away from us really as we move up towards day 10. So yes, that's a very, very dry ECM run indeed. Bear in mind the GFS and the GEM are a lot more unsettled through the early part of next week. But the ECM definitely not really interested in much in the way of rain in the next 10 days. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which gets us to the 5th of June. We have 19 members of the ECM ensembles with above average heights out to our west and below average heights are up to our northeast. Winds are coming in from a west to sort of northwesterly direction. Should be quite a bit of dry weather with that, maybe a bit showery in the north, but essentially we're still close to high pressure. 14 with low pressure sinking down the North Sea. High pressure pulling out into the middle of the Atlantic. That could be quite cool and showery. That does include the control run as well. 11 members of the ECM ensembles with high pressure just out to our west. And this includes the operational run. High pressure just out to our west, still keeping rain-bearing systems generally to our south and to our north and to our west. So that keeps anticyclonic up to day 10. And 7 with high pressure centred over the top of the country. So a few options, possibilities, but most of them still seem to involve high pressure being quite close to the country really at day 10. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. And these perhaps look a little bit more unsettled. This gets us to the 10th of June. We have 13 members of the ECM ensembles with low pressure across much of northern and western Europe. That's unsettled, of course. 11 with low pressure over to the south of the country. 10 with an area of high pressure over the country. 9 with high pressure to our east, low pressure to our west. And 8 with high pressure over Scandinavia, low pressure to our south. They're going to be easterly. Quite a few different options there, varying options, but it does look as though quite a few of them possibly involve things getting a bit more unsettled as we move sometime into the early part of the second week of June. So maybe a few hints of things going a bit more unsettled further on into June, but it's not going to be an immediate process. It looks like high pressure could stick around for a little while into the opening days of June. Let's just have a look at CFS V2 before we go. So these are 500 millibar high anomalies broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 26th of May to the 1st of June. The coming week is dominated by high pressure really in control, bringing loads of dry, fine and very warm weather with it. Week 2 is the 2nd to the 8th of June. We pull the high pressure out to our west. We get low pressure to our east and northeast. Winds going a little bit northwesterly, so becoming cooler. And potentially a little bit more unsettled as well. A little bit more showery there through the first week of June. Week 2 is the 9th to the 15th of June with the above average heights just out to our west, below average heights to our east and southeast, jet stream and flow is doing something a little bit like that. We're still being protected by the high pressure really. We may be a little bit on the cool side, winds coming in from the north to northwest direction, but we're being protected by high pressure, so it shouldn't be overly unsettled, except there could be some rain perhaps for more southern and east areas. And then week 4 is the 16th to 22nd of June. High pressure up towards Scandinavia and in the middle of the Atlantic. Not sure what's going on here, but there might be a trough filling up the gap through there. So put a question mark there because I'm not sure, but there could be a trough filling in the gap between the two ridges in the middle of the Atlantic and to the northeast of Scandinavia. That might be a little bit more unsettled. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead, taking us from the 26th of May to 1st of June. Going to be hotter than average, a warmer than average week coming up. Week 2, which is the 2nd to the 8th of June, that one also has above average temperature anomalies. Week 3, which is the 9th to the 15th of June, close to average. Week 4, 16th, 22nd of June, just hinting at going a little bit cooler than average then. And finally, precipitation-wise, the 26th of May to 1st of June is drier than average. Week 2, 2nd to the 8th of June, is also on the drier than average side as well. Week 3 has near normal precipitation. It's the 9th to 15th of June. And then week 4, again, no particular signals in week 3 and 4 for precipitation. It's 16th, 22nd of June. Again, no particular signal. So it all remains to be seen what happens as we get through to June. But I think certainly for the next few days, we're under high pressure dominating up to weekend. Going to be lots of dry and fine warm conditions. The question is what happens next week. So we've got the GFS and the GM going more unsettled through the early and middle part of next week, bringing in some much needed rain, has to be said. Much needed rain spilling in across the country through the early and middle part of next week. The ECM, though, not convinced about that. The ECM wants to have more of a high pressure influence through next week. The way things have gone over the past few weeks, the past month or two, you would probably favour the warmest, driest option all the time. The warmest, driest option is the ECM, so that's probably the one you will favour. But hopefully we may get some rain, because I certainly need it for my garden. I know a lot of you need it too for your garden, so hopefully we'll get some rain through the early part of next week. But there is a bit of uncertainty about that, as you'll have gathered. And then beyond that, moving further on into June, possibly some hints that it goes, increasing chance of it going more unsettled. But it all looks rather flimsy, and I'm still not particularly convinced. So more runs needed, I think. Right, that's it for today's videos. Tomorrow I've got the 5-day forecast coming up. We'll have a week to 10-day video update as well. And we'll have a live stream from 6 o'clock tomorrow. New time for the Wednesday live stream from 6 o'clock. So we'll see how we get on with that. Don't forget to like the video, give us a thumbs up, let us know that you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe to the channel as well. Hit the subscribe button and then click the bell icon to enable all notifications, and then you'll be notified when we're live streaming and uploading and whatnot. We want to get the subs to 7,000 by the end of the summer. I don't think we'll be able to do it, but it would be nice if we could. Yeah, so like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and we'll be back tomorrow with some more updates. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.